1. Intro. What if your morning routine isn't making you stronger, but quietly draining you before the day even begins? Most people wake up and immediately rush, checking their phones, chasing tasks, trying to control everything. But what if that's the very reason you feel exhausted by noon? The Stoics believe the first moments of your day shape your inner state, not your productivity. And here's the truth. The more you try to force your morning, the more resistance you create. There's a simpler way, one that starts not with doing more, but with doing less, and thinking clearly. If you're ready to rethink how you begin your day, subscribe to Legacy of Thinkers and discover a calmer, stronger way to live. 2. The problem. The problem isn't that people don't have a morning routine. It's that most routines are built on pressure, not clarity. From the moment the alarm goes off, the mind is already crowded. Notifications, unfinished tasks, expectations for the day. You're told to optimize every minute, to stack habits, to win the morning before 8 a.m. But instead of feeling focused, you feel rushed, and underneath that rush is a quiet tension that follows you for the rest of the day. What many don't realize is that this constant urgency trains your mind to stay reactive. You're not choosing your day, you're responding to it. And over time, that creates a subtle exhaustion, not just physically, but mentally. Even moments meant to be productive start to feel heavy. The Stoics saw this differently. They understood that when your mind begins the day in noise, it carries that noise everywhere, and no amount of external structure can fix an internal state that was never settled to begin with. 3. The Stoic insight. The Stoics approached the morning very differently. They didn't see it as a race to get ahead, but as a moment to return to themselves. Before the world made its demands, they focused on something far more important: how they would meet those demands internally. Because to them, the quality of your day was not determined by how much you accomplished, but by how steady your mind remained while doing it. Instead of filling the morning with action, they created space for awareness. Oral would pause and remind himself that the day ahead might bring difficulty, interruption, or even frustration, but none of those things had the power to disturb him unless he allowed it. This wasn't about pessimism, it was preparation, a quiet strengthening of the mind before stepping into uncertainty. What they understood, and what many people miss today, is that your first thoughts are not neutral. They set the tone for everything that follows. If your mind begins scattered, reactive, and overwhelmed, then even simple tasks will feel heavier than they are. But if it begins grounded, deliberate, and clear, then even challenges lose some of their weight. The Stoic habit was simple, but not easy. Observe before reacting. Instead of reaching for the phone, they reached inward. Instead of asking, "What do I need to do today?" they asked, "How do I need to think today?" That shift, subtle but powerful, changed everything. Because once your thinking is steady, your actions follow naturally. They weren't trying to control the day. They were training themselves to remain unchanged by it. And in doing so, they discovered something most people overlook. Peace is not found in a perfect routine, but in a disciplined inner state that no routine can replace. 4. Reversal moment. Here's the reversal most people don't expect. The harder you try to control your morning, the more chaotic your day tends to feel. It sounds counterintuitive, because we're taught that structure creates stability. But when that structure is driven by pressure, when every minute is planned, every habit stacked, every outcome anticipated, it doesn't create calm. It creates tension. You wake up already measuring yourself. Did I do enough? Am I behind? What's next? And before the day has even begun, your mind is operating in a state of subtle urgency. Not because anything is wrong, but because you've trained it to believe that something always might be. This is where the hidden cost appears. Control, when forced, doesn't reduce uncertainty. It amplifies your sensitivity to it. The more tightly you try to manage your morning, the more fragile your state becomes when something inevitably goes off plan. A delayed message, a small inconvenience, an unexpected interruption, and suddenly, the entire rhythm of your day feels disrupted. Not because the event was significant, but because your mind was already stretched thin trying to hold everything together. The Stoics recognized this trap early. They understood that peace doesn't come from eliminating unpredictability, but from loosening your dependence on it. Instead of building a morning that demands perfection, they built one that allows flexibility, one that doesn't collapse when reality shifts. So the real shift isn't about doing more or doing less, it's about releasing the need to control what hasn't happened yet. When you stop gripping the day so tightly, something unexpected happens. Your mind softens, your focus sharpens, and your energy is no longer wasted on resisting what is simply part of being alive. 5. Modern application. So how does this translate into modern life, where mornings are fast, noisy, and often overwhelming? The Stoic approach doesn't ask you to escape that reality. It asks you to meet it differently. Not by adding more structure, but by shifting how you engage with what's already there. Start with this: do less, but do it with awareness. Instead of stacking habits the moment you wake up, create a small gap between waking and reacting. That gap, even if it's just 2 minutes, changes everything. Sit up, breathe slowly, and notice the first thoughts that arise. Not to judge them, not to fix them, but simply to observe. This trains your mind to step back instead of being pulled forward by urgency. Next, delay stimulation. Most people reach for their phone within seconds of waking, inviting the outside world to dictate their inner state. Messages, headlines, notifications. They all compete for your attention before you've even decided how you want to feel. The Stoic alternative is simple. Give yourself time before you let the world in. Even 10 minutes of quiet creates a boundary between your mind and everything trying to influence it. Then, clarify intention. Not in terms of tasks, but in terms of mindset. Instead of asking, "What do I need to get done today?" try asking, "What kind of person do I want to be today?" Calm under pressure, patient in conversations, focused despite distractions. This subtle shift moves your attention from external outcomes to internal conduct, the one thing you can actually control. Another practical step is to expect friction, not as a negative assumption, but as a neutral reality. Traffic might be slow, someone might misunderstand you, plans might change. When you acknowledge this early, you remove the element of surprise. And without surprise, frustration loses much of its intensity. You're no longer reacting, you're responding with awareness. Finally, simplify your start. You don't need a perfect routine filled with 10 different habits. You need a consistent entry point into the day that centers your mind. It could be sitting quietly, stepping outside for fresh air, or writing down one clear intention. The specific action matters less than the state it creates. Because in the end, the Stoic morning isn't about productivity, it's about alignment. When your mind is steady, your actions become more efficient without force. When your expectations are flexible, your energy is preserved instead of drained. And when you stop trying to win the morning, you may find that the day unfolds with far less resistance than you ever expected. 6. Practice. A practical Stoic morning doesn't need to be long or complicated. It only needs to be intentional. Start by giving yourself a small moment of stillness before anything else. Sit upright, take a slow breath, and allow your mind to settle. You don't have to clear your thoughts. You just need to notice them without immediately following them. This simple pause creates distance between you and your impulses. Then, ask yourself one quiet question. What truly matters today? Not everything. Just 1 or 2 things that are within your control. This helps you anchor your attention, instead of letting it scatter across endless tasks. Next, prepare your mind for reality. Remind yourself that the day may include delays, misunderstandings, or interruptions, not as something to fear, but as something normal. When you expect these moments, they lose their power to frustrate you. Finally, Carry one intention into your day. It could be patience, clarity, or calm. Let that intention guide how you respond, not just what you do. Because a Stoic practice isn't about perfect behavior, it's about steady awareness. Repeat it every morning. 7. Reflection. Take a moment and consider this. How do your mornings actually feel? Not how they look. Do they begin with clarity, or with pressure you've learned to accept as normal? Many people spend years trying to fix their days, without ever questioning how those days begin. But the beginning matters more than we think. It quietly shapes the pace, the tone, and even the meaning we assign to everything that follows. Maybe the goal isn't to build a perfect routine. Maybe it's to notice when you're forcing something that was never meant to feel heavy. To recognize that calm isn't something you earn after productivity, it's something you choose before it. And that choice, repeated over time, becomes a different way of living. So tomorrow morning, don't try to do more. Just try to notice more. Notice your thoughts. Notice your pace. Notice how you meet the first moment of the day. Because that moment is always available to you, and it may be the only place where real change begins. If this reflection resonated with you, share your thought in the comments, and continue the practice tomorrow. Subscribe to Legacy of Thinkers for more quiet shifts that change how you live.